So the our way forward is, there are select postulates in all the religions they touch upon or they have to deal with, and they have their own logic behind accepting that, or there is no logic. So as far as possible, we'll try to go logically, approaching the philosophies or the religions through logic. That is how we are going to do. At places where I have not gone through the logical portion of the system, I will have to just quote that thing instead of going into the system, because a few systems I could go through them, few systems I couldn't. So naturally, there will be some issue, but we'll try to do as far as possible logical, and the sessions will be participative. It will not be a one-way lecture sort of thing, discussion mostly. Now, we'll take one example from our general experience. We have a stone, suppose, and we can divide that stone into two or more parts. We see that is our experience. Now, if we are able to divide a stone into two parts, we can take one part of those two parts and we can divide it further. So one stone divided into two, out of those two parts, each can be divided into further parts. By this logic, what we build one logic through this particular thing is that we can divide the thing at hand. That much we understand. If a stone can be divided, its part also can be divided. And if its part can be divided, its part also can be divided. So far, so good. Now, suppose if we continue like this, dividing the next part again further, how far can we go? Or how far will this happen? What do you think?
Means like we can divide it till infinity, like till the time the parts are there, we can keep on dividing it.
Well, if suppose as the logic goes, if the first stone can be divided and its part can be divided, so any further division, any further divided particle can be further divided logically. That much we have to accept, because that is how the logic is progressing.
Correct.
Now, by that, what happens is we have to accept that every stone has infinite number of particles. Because if the division is leading to infinity, so the number of particles in one stone or any sort of unit particle, there will be infinite number of subparticles. That much is appearing to us. And there will be no last particle beyond which there will be no division. Now, well, by accepting this, what happens is infinite division is not a problem as such. Unless and until we pose some problem, accepting infinite division has no difficulty. Like suppose this world continues further and further and further in the temporal frame, if it continues for infinite time, we have no difficulty. Let it be. So well, but by accepting that the division is infinite division is possible, we also have to accept that the stone will have infinite number of particles in it. Now, if a stone has infinite number of particles, so the mountain has, if a small stone has infinite number of particles, naturally the mountain will also have infinite number of particles. Now, we cannot say that my mountain has more infinite number of particles and stone has, because infinity has no more infinity and less infinity. Otherwise, that will cease to be an infinity. Okay. So, if the mountain too has infinite number of particles, why the mountain is bigger and the stone is smaller? That is the question. At least they should be of equal size, but they are not. Now, to differ in size, density will play some role. If the stone is dense and mountain is not that dense, then we may say that, okay, both have equal number of particles, but in the stone they are jam packed. The density is very high. In the stone it is very less, etc., etc. Mountain is less. Like a mercury and a sponge. Sponge is so big and mercury is so small. So we may argue, but so far as this particular example is example goes, mountain and stone has almost equal density. So we can't argue that they have infinite number of particles, but their size differs because of density. So that point doesn't hold water. So the difficulty which is appearing is if we accept the infinite division of particles, we have to accept that mountain and stone should be of equal size. But that is not. So what compels us to accept that a mountain and stone should be of equal size is our acceptance that the division is infinite. That particular assumption forces us to accept that mountain and stone should be of equal size, but the mountain and stone is not of equal size. So we have to go back and change our assumption, because we have now two logical points in front of us. One is mountain and stone are not of equal size, so they do not have infinite number or same number of particles or infinite number of particles. And we have another, or we can say they have limited number of particles, countable number of particles, so to say, though humanly may not be possible, but logically, mathematically, that will be possible. Whereas if we have another logic that since one stone gets divided into two and its part also gets divided into further two, so the division will be infinite. We have that. There is also logic. We did not assume it like okay, just assume that. No, there was also a force of logic for accepting infinite division. But we have two logical points opposing each other. So which one should be given importance? So if we accept that the infinite division is possible, we have to accept that stone and mountain are of equal size, whereas they are not. So if they are not, then we have to go back and give up that position of infinite division. Okay. So you may think that this is not philosophy, this is something else, but this is going to be philosophy. Okay, the philosophy goes this way. It should start with our mundane life and experience and build the logic from there. It should not be away from our general experience as far as possible. Okay. Now, infinite division is not possible. So we have to accept. Do you feel comfortable with it?
Yes, yes.
Now, infinite division not possible means what? We have to pay attention to this particular point now. That means even there is some human limitation for division, but suppose we assume that human limitation is not halting us from dividing. So by logic or such thing, we accept that, okay, we have the power to divide the subtle particles which are not easily visible, etc. So human limitation is taken care of. Now, human limitation is subjective limitation. Whereas this particular limit that in infinite division is not possible is not subjective limit, it's objective limit. The particle itself at some stage of division at say 100th or 1000th or maybe 10 raised to some power, etc. That level of further division, at some point, a particle will come which will not allow us to divide it. So what actually makes a particle divide? If it is composed of some parts, it will allow us to divide. And if it is not composed of parts, it cannot be divided. That which has parts, that can be divided, which is not composite. Here the technical word will be composite or concrete. That which is not composite, that can't be divided. So we have to accept a unit particle which is not composite. So which is not composite, for that technical word will be simple. We have to accept simple particle, composite particle and simple particle. So this simple particle which has no constituent parts will have to be accepted, and that's why objectively it can't be divided, though subjectively we have some power to catch it and apply our instruments, etc. But since it has no constituent parts, you can't divide. So there comes a concept of indivisible particle because it has no constituent parts. So far, so good. Now,
Yes.
whenever there is any creation or production, it is nothing but constituent parts coming together. Now, try to think any object which is production, but constituent parts have not come together anywhere in our experience. Even science, if science wants to state, like, we may not observe so subtly, but those who observe it subtly from that field, have we ever heard or read in our books that anything created in this world, or the world itself, suppose? Now, world is a big concept, but at least in the world, is there any such thing which is, it is created, but it's not a composition of its constituents? Can we propose any such thing? Have you come across anywhere?
No.
So we have to accept that creation means constituent parts coming together. So we are trying to establish some norms, some rules. So these are the rules which you observe from the world. If at some stage, if we get any extra logic or any force of argument or experimental proof or objective proof that no, this particular assumption is wrong, so we will be ready to change. But so far we feel that, okay, this sounds okay, comfortable with the logic. So any creation is nothing but constituent parts coming together. And when there is no constituent part to a thing, it can't be created. We cannot say that last particle, simple particle, is created by someone. The moment we say that simple particle but created, that will be a misnomer. Creation of simple particle, no way. Because if we think that a simple particle is created, we'll have to assume that it is created from nothing. Nothing to something, there is no case. Nobody proposes. If anybody proposes, then there is difficulty. Nothing to something and something to nothing. Now, as we said, anything, any creation means constituent parts coming together. So dissolution or destruction will mean falling apart, going back to the constituent parts. That much is okay. So there cannot be a case that there is destruction and complete annihilation, nihilism sort of thing, going to nothing. No, that going to nothing will not be the case. Going to constituent parts will be the case. So as I asked you some question like, can you think of any creation, but it is not composite or concrete? So can you think of any destruction which is not going to the parts, constituent parts? We can't imagine. So what comes to us is simple particle cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. So we were thinking of its creation, but it can't be destroyed also. Destruction means, as we said, we divide the stone into two and its part into two, and like that, that is sort of destruction. Likewise, this particular particle we can't divide. So that means it has no destruction. So the thing which has no creation and no destruction will be called as eternal, living forever. So such things should be called as eternal, because it can't be produced, it can be destroyed. It will live forever, whatever, anything may happen in the world. Now here, though we have not proposed God as such, but generally I pose such question: can God create that simple particle? Because if we accept that even God creates, then we'll have to accept that the simple particle will have constituent parts, one, or we'll have to accept that the simple particle is created from nothing. So there will be a difficulty. So since there is no practical case of nothing to something, or a simple particle to further division, so even God also can't create. Suppose we propose some God, since the way we are approaching, we are not all of a sudden proposing God, but at the back of mind somewhere we have heard and we think that everything is possible for God. But here comes the position where the all-powerful God will be tested, so to say, because logic doesn't allow us to go here and there. So we have this particle which is eternal, which has no creation, which has no destruction. Any creation is combination or composition of constituent parts. This much is okay?
Yes.
If you have any question or anything about this, please tell me, or I'm going too fast or too slow or whatever.
It's okay. You can continue. I'll listen.
Well, now from this analysis, why at all this analysis was proposed, or why we went this way, the exact outcome which we want is, we are not interested in stone and the mountain and equal size and whatever. Our learning outcome from this particular discussion is, simple thing cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. Any creation means constituent parts coming together, and destruction means falling apart, going back to the constituent parts. There can be, like, suppose we have, when we make a table, we have 4 legs and the so many planks together and some screws, etc. Put together, and when suppose it is burnt, it doesn't go to the legs and plank and screws, it goes to ashes and air and all such things. But we have to accept that the planks and legs and screws also came from those constituents of the ash and all such things. So even if we burn the planks and legs, etc., without making it a table, it will go to the same level. So there is no difficulty in it. So simple thing which is which has no constituent parts, can't be created, cannot be destroyed, so it is eternal. And creation means composition or individual constituent parts coming together, and destruction means going to the parts. So these are the 4 sentences we can say, 2 sentences for simple and 2 sentences for the composite. This is our outcome. So to have this idea very clear, this particular exercise was done. If there is any, at the back of mind, if there is any question or this way or that way, you may pose. I will, if I have no answer, I have to think up and come up with some answer. But if you have anything, you can easily share. I don't mind asking questions. If I do not have answer, I do not have answer. Suppose I'm not much worried. I will try to get some answers if at all, and I welcome if there is some odd question, because since that will mean that I could not think that angle, so it will force me to think. So that will be very good. So now the next stage is we see from the observation is the stone itself can't move, neither its part. So its further part also can't move by itself. That much is our observation. Even Newton tells us any object at any inert object or object at rest will not move by itself unless and until it is acted upon by external unbalanced force. That is how the law, Newton's law goes. So now the question is, suppose there is a thing, inert object, and since you state that it can't move by itself, so but we find that there are these inert objects moving. Earth moves, sun moves, all the what you say, celestial bodies move, and on the earth also so many things, water moves, air moves, and so many things move. There is movement. Now, what caused this movement?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yeah. So the question is, what causes this movement is the question. Now he will say that the object at rest was impinged upon by another inert object, but what caused that object to move? The first object did not move by itself, but it was made to move by something else, some other object. Yeah, please. Now, the inert object which was at rest is made to move by some external object which exerts unbalanced force. Now the question is, what made that object move? Third object which was at movement. Then, but what caused the first object to move? That remains the question. The law itself poses a problem and doesn't solve the problem, or it makes us accept that the inert object was made to move by non-inert object. One of that is to be accepted. Well, that is the law coming to us, and if we analyze it in a deeper fashion, so it makes us either it leaves one question unanswered, or it forces us to accept some other postulate. Well, now since a stone can't move by itself, its part can't move by itself, and its part will not move, so by that logic, we can say that the last particle, that simple particle, also will not move by itself. Now, if that can't move, who or what makes them move? There should be some external agency to make them move, because the logic tells us that they can't move. Now, somebody may say that as the stone and its parts and the particle and the simple particle will have has gravity on it, and by gravity they are attracted to each other by m1 m2 upon r square, etc., is the equation, that mass of one body into mass of another body divided by the square of the distance between them, whatever, like that. So that is the gravitational pull applied on both the bodies, and they will be attracted and they will come together. This is also one question which may be posed, like magnetism. Magnet, though it's inert, but it has magnetic field, and that magnetic field makes the objects in iron objects in its vicinity to move if they are movable, not so heavy. So but the magnetic field has its range. It can't act beyond certain range. Even if we accept that the individual particles have gravitational force. But now suppose if we leave a particle in the space anywhere where, and all such particles are distance apart. And if those particles are not coming into the gravitational pull of each other, how will they move? We have to accept that they are in the range of the gravitational pull and then they come together. But this will have to be assumed. If suppose they are not, then they will be left out. So the probable question here, if they have gravitational force or like magnetism, etc., then they can come together and combine. So why do we go for some external agency to make them move? So we have to, initially we have to find out the answer in the system itself. If it is possible, then why go for external agency? Because bringing any external agency is always cumbersome to the logic. Logic says manage with minimum assumed things. If that can be solved, then why go for extra assumption? So our first attempt is whether the particles can move themselves. Now, so the greatest answer is gravity. Beyond that, nobody has any answer. Science has no answer. Gravity. But the gravity also the scientists have failed to establish gravity on the God particle, which they call. However, we may not go into them now, but there is somebody or people will argue that yes, gravity is the force which can act, and that is inbuilt in the system. So you don't have to posit any external agency to bring the particles together or make the particles move. But that also doesn't stand. Even suppose at some point or giving them the leeway, okay, we accept that the particles have gravity and then they act. But they cannot create a thoughtful universe. Such a wonderful composition, how will that be created? That is the question. Now, so even if suppose we are giving one step or we are conceding one step for them, even then the questions are remaining. There will be some like conglomerates, many or one. Actually, there should be one. So now suppose two particles coming together to make one dual. So likewise, many coming together, all should come together and only one body should be created. Why many are created? So some such questions will come up. But now the point is, since the particles can't move by themselves, who will make them move or what will make them move? We suppose we will accept that there is one particle which has the ability to move other particle or other particles. We have to accept some external agency. So the external agency, and at the beginning, for the sake of beginning, we will assume with start with one particle, which is simple. Because if we accept composite particle, how that composite happened and why that happened will be the question. So we'll begin with one particle which is simple, but which is capable to move other particles or one particle. And it understands what is to be created. It has the plan to build the world. So it should have that understanding. So the consciousness, that faculty should be there with that particle. That much is necessary. Just it is able to move one particle or many particles here and there. So it dashed against some particles and it made move and something happened like that. So that doesn't go well. So it should, there is a thoughtful creation. So it should be aware of what is to be created, how to combine the particles. But the question is, how can one particle be after so many particles at a time? Because all the particles have to move. how can one particle will go after infinite number of particles and bring them and make this composite? How much time will it take, etc. So since that appears to be very rare case, so for that we can propose that if behind every inert particle, simple particle, there is another conscious particle that is also simple, and they are after each particle there is one, and they are moving those particles. But the question is then, since every particle is conscious, that which makes the other particle move, they will have their own design, and they may not come together, they will quarrel. So that is the possibility. But what appears is there is one thought behind the whole creation. So every individual particle having any one conscious particle behind it, that logic fails. So if that is not happening, so going below that level of that simple particle is not possible, because simple particle is the minimum boundary. Beyond below that smaller particle is not possible. We cannot think of that. We'll go to higher side then, because we have to solve the problem. We'll go to the higher side. Now higher side means, we can, at the beginning we can say that, let us assume a higher side, that there is a object which has all the particles inside it. Like suppose we have our solar system, it has so many things inside it, or Earth has so many things inside it. Likewise, assuming that there is one entity which encompasses all the particles so that it can make them move. Now, first thing is, suppose it has very big size, and the moment it is possible for that entity to encompass all the particles, beyond that range it need not exist. The entity need not exist. We can, for the sake of logic, why go beyond that? If our problem can be solved by this big entity which encompasses all the particles, why should we extend its limit beyond that particular boundary? So we will assume that a object or the entity which encompasses all the particles, but it too has one boundary. Beyond that it doesn't extend, and there are no particles beyond that. But then there is a difficulty that such an entity which has boundary will be composite. It cannot be simple. Simple is possible only at the that particle level. At higher levels, simple thing is not possible. It will have to be composite. The moment it has to be composite, it will have constituent particles, and what made those particles come together will be the question. Whether its constituent particles are those dead particles, inert particles, or conscious particles. So this entity which is proposed to move all the particles has the ability to move all the particles, and also is conscious that what is to be created, what is to be done. But how that consciousness has come to it? Is it by its constituent particles coming together that there is a collective consciousness? So, but for that we have to assume that there are individual particles, those are conscious, and they have come together to form such a big thing, etc., etc. So that doesn't go well. Many consciousness coming together, conscious objects coming together, and one unit consciousness out of that, that doesn't go that way. Forces add up, but consciousness will not add up. There is consciousness will always be thinking separately. Now, if you think of an object, however big it may be, but if it has some boundary, it has to be composite or concrete. So to get rid of this problem that it has to be concrete, and how that concrete is formed, that can't be answered. So we have to go beyond the boundaries and say that the object has no boundary. limitless. Spatially, it has no limit. Spatial, space-wise. Okay. So if it is limitless by space, that itself tells us that it cannot be composite. If it is composite, if it is created of by bringing the particles together, the thing will be limited in size. It has to be. But since this is limitless, it cannot be composite. Limitless and composite do not go together. Okay. Now, this limitless thing, which is not composite, if it is not composite, will it be created someday? What do you think?
If it is limitless, then will it be?
If it is not composite and if it is limitless, so will it be created someday? Is it possible that can we say that it is created?
No.
No, it
If
can't
it-
be created.
No.
So it can't be destroyed?
No, it cannot be. There is no beginning, no end.
No, no end. Okay. No creation, no dissolution, or no destruction. Now, we find that on Earth, we have water, air column. The density here near to the Earth's surface is high. And as we go away from the Earth towards the space, the density of air becomes lower. And after a certain point, there is no air.
Correct.
So for air, it is possible to have dense and rare. So for that entity, the absolutely large entity, limitless entity, will it be possible to have dense at places and rare at places?
Yes.
How will that entity will be dense? How will that entity be dense at places, at cross sections, and at some cross sections not dense or rare? Why at all that has to be assumed, first of all, that it will be dense at places and rare at other places? Why that should be assumed? And even if it is to be assumed, will it be possible for that entity to be dense and rare? What do you think?
Can you repeat it once again, Swamiji?
That limitless entity, non-composite entity, simple entity, as air has density near Earth and rarity away, and no air beyond that. So this for any object to be dense, even if suppose we take sponge, we can press in one corner and leave like that in the other corner. Where it is pressed, it will be dense. At other place, it will be rare. So density and rarity is the possibility with these objects.
Correct.
But for that infinite simple object, such density, dense at places at cross sections and rare at other cross sections, is there any necessity to be so? And if at all there is any necessity, can that be so?
No, there is no necessity.
There is no, pardon? There is no necessity.
No.
And it will not be possible also, because the thing is, density and rarity comes with the object which is composite. Density means compactly packed particles, and rarity means loosely packed particles. So since it has no constituent particles, which is not made up of the things, it will not be compact or rare, so to say. This is one part. So what we are trying to do is ascertaining the nature of that limitless entity. What is the exact nature? If it is simple and limitless, we have to accept that it has no density and no rarity. So it will be uniform all over.
All over.
Uniformity will be the nature. Now, due to heat and many such changes in the atmosphere, we find at places there is storm, cyclone, tornado, and all such things. Will that entity have its internal tornadoes and cyclones? Or like water has whirlpool, vortex. Will that entity have its own vortex, whirlpool, tornado, or cyclone-like thing? As air has tornadoes,
No,
water has eddies,
no,
so it will not have. Because
no.
it is possible only when it is composite.
Composite.
It is simple, so it will not have some such things. Another thing is, we have LPG cylinder with us, or when we inflate tires, tubes of the vehicles, etc. We capture a room full of air and put it into that much volume.
Volume, correct, cylinder.
So compressed air. So for air, it's possible to compress a very big volume of air, a building full of air, into one cylinder. So this particular limitless entity, large entity, limitless simple entity, will it be possible for that entity to get compressed into a small form?
No, it would be present everywhere.
It will be present. That is one part. That is accepted, no doubt. But as air can get compressed and appear in the entire air which is available on Earth, can take shape of a few mountains and keep quiet there. That is possible.
Correct.
Likewise, this limitless entity, will it be possible for that entity, even if it thinks that let us assume some concrete form and be at in some limited cross section, will it be possible?
Yeah, it will be possible.
Will it come to limited shape?
No, not limited, because it is like infinite, so not limited shape.
The moment it will form a limited shape, we will have to accept that it is composite.
Composite, correct.
So it cannot go away from its nature, even if it wants or even if it thinks. Otherwise, its established nature, acceptance that it comes into some concrete form or concrete in limited size and shape, will dislodge it from its that established nature, which is logically established. So this possibility is not there with for that entity to take some human form or any such form. It is not possible. Can it go from one place to another?
Yeah, it can go from one place to other.
Going from one place to another is possible only when, as you are there and you are not here, you can come to me.
But it is present everywhere.
So can it go from one place to another?
No, it is present everywhere.
So
So
no, it cannot go because there is no place which is empty.
yeah, every
Devoid of it, there is no place devoid of it. So it can't go. Okay. All right. Can it increase in size or shrink in size?
no, it is like everywhere. There is no like end to it. So it is everywhere. There means if it reduces, then it loses its nature.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it is so no less, no more everywhere.
Well, very nice. So this brings us to a universal simple principle. So we have two entities, smallest simple principle and universal or largest. This is the smallest, so another end is largest simple principle. Two ends will be like this. So our today's derivation is the simple particle, smallest particle, indivisible, not having constituent parts, neither having creation, no destruction. And to move them, we went searching one after another. If you have any question or logic or any proposition that instead of going hunting for such a largest entity, we can solve the problem in between. So let us think of that if there is any solution. Well, so this largest entity, simple entity, it can't go from one place to another, and it has no constituent parts. Since it is called simple, it has no constituent parts. It cannot have eddies as water has eddies, or it cannot have cyclone or tornadoes as air has. Air is dense at places and rare at other places, so that particular thing will be uniform all through. It will not have density or rarity as such, so to say. So these are the moment you utter a word that a limitless simple entity or principle, all other qualities, so to say, are naturally inbuilt. We don't have to again say that, okay, there will be one entity which is simple and largest, limitless, but some of them will grow in size and some of them will not grow in size. Some of them will move from one place to another, some of them will not move. So some such things are not possible. The whole set of qualities are get already accrued to that particular principle. So now what happens is, this particular way of thinking and logic forces us to accept some principle along with its remaining qualities. There is no other way out. Like as I said, we cannot propose 5 largest simple objects or things. One can move, other can't move, but it can grow in size. Third has density and rarity, and other has say suppose tornadoes and eddies, etc., etc., etc. So that cannot be the possibility. If there are 5 some such largest simple objects, all will have the same composition, so to say, or same qualities. So what I wanted to point out through this is, saying that simple largest entity forces us to accept those other points pointed out to you. So we will conclude with this, because already we have taken a very tough topic today, very important. So if you have any queries, you may ask, or you may prepare, and then we'll discuss later.
No,